The rain hit the pavement in relentless sheets, a cruel soundtrack to Sarah's crumbling life. She sat in her car, a battered, rust-speckled sedan parked on the edge of a near-empty lot. Her hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, as tears carved silent trails down her cheeks. Everything she had worked for was gone, swept away like debris in a storm. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat. She ignored it, but the insistent vibration pulled her gaze to the screen. It was James, her fiancé, or rather, her ex-fiancé. The man who had promised her forever, but had left her with nothing but a string of lies and an eviction notice. Sarah stared at the phone until the call went to voicemail. She couldn't bear to hear his voice again. The memories of that morning clawed at her like a fresh wound. She had woken up to an empty apartment. James's belongings were gone, replaced by a single note on the kitchen counter. "Sarah, I'm sorry, but this isn't working. I've met someone else. The lease and the bills are in your name now. I wish you the best." The words had been written in his familiar, looping scrawl, but they might as well have been a death sentence. Sarah had stumbled back into the bedroom, hoping it was some cruel joke, but the closet was half empty. His favorite leather jacket and custom-tailored suits, gifts she had saved months to buy, were gone. For a moment, she had been too stunned to cry. The reality hit her later when the landlord arrived, banging on the door and demanding overdue rent. James had drained their shared savings account to fund his new life, leaving her with nothing but mounting debts and shattered trust. The weight of betrayal. Sarah replayed the events of the past month as she sat in her car, her only remaining sanctuary. The betrayal felt like a physical weight pressing down on her chest. She had always believed in hard work, loyalty, and the power of love. But where had that gotten her? Jobless, penniless, and heartbroken. Her job at the marketing firm had been stable until the company downsized. She had trusted James to support them both during the rough patch, but his secret gambling habit had bled them dry. Now, even her car, a gift from her parents years ago, was on its last legs, and the idea of sleeping in it for another night filled her with dread. The buzzing of her phone interrupted her thoughts again. This time, it wasn't James but her best friend, Lisa. Sarah hesitated before answering. "Sarah, where are you? I've been trying to reach you all day." Lisa's voice was tinged with concern. "I'm fine," Sarah lied, her voice cracking. "Don't you dare say you're fine. I heard about James. That spineless jerk. You don't have to go through this alone. Come stay with me." "I can't," Sarah whispered. "I appreciate it, but I need to figure this out on my own." Lisa sighed on the other end. "You're the most stubborn person I know, but please promise me you'll call if it gets too much." "I'm serious, Sarah. You're not alone." Sarah nodded even though Lisa couldn't see her. "I'll call. I promise." She hung up, the lump in her throat growing heavier. Lisa's offer was tempting, but Sarah couldn't bear the thought of being a burden. She had always prided herself on her independence, even when life threw curveballs. But this time, the curveball felt more like a wrecking ball. A chance encounter. The rain showed no sign of stopping as Sarah finally mustered the strength to step out of the car. She needed a break from the suffocating confines of her cramped vehicle. Across the street, a small cafe glowed warmly, its neon open sign flickering like a beacon in the storm. Sarah pushed open the door, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. The cafe was nearly empty, save for a barista behind the counter and a man in a suit sitting by the window. She ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu and found a seat in the corner, her damp coat clinging to her skin. As she sipped her coffee, Sarah couldn't help but notice the man at the window. He was older, perhaps in his 50s, with sharp features softened by a kind expression. He was scribbling notes in a leather-bound notebook, occasionally glancing out at the rain. Their eyes met briefly, and Sarah quickly looked away, embarrassed to be caught staring. But moments later, the man stood up and approached her table. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, his voice warm but authoritative. Sarah hesitated before nodding. "Sure. I couldn't help but notice you look like you've had a rough day," he said, setting his notebook on the table. "I'm not trying to pry, but sometimes it helps to talk." Sarah let out a hollow laugh. "Talking won't fix anything. But thanks." The man studied her for a moment before responding. "You know, I've been where you are, feeling like the world's caved in, and there's no way out. But sometimes rock bottom is where the strongest foundations are built." Sarah raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "And what do you know about rock bottom?" The man smiled faintly. "More than you'd think. Let's just say I lost everything once. My job, my home, my family. But someone gave me a chance when I didn't believe in myself, and it changed everything." The mysterious offer. Sarah was about to dismiss his words as another empty platitude when he slid his business card across the table. "My name's Daniel Layton. I run a small company downtown. It's not much, but we're growing. If you're willing to work hard, I might have something for you." Sarah stared at the card, her mind racing. Why would you offer a job to someone you don't even know? Daniel leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Because someone once did the same for me. And because I can see something in you, something you probably don't see in yourself right now." Her first instinct was to decline. The offer seemed too good to be true, and she had learned the hard way not to trust easily. But as she looked at the card again, a flicker of hope stirred in her chest. "What kind of work is it?" she asked cautiously. "Marketing. Branding. It's an internship, so I can't pay much. But it's a start. You'll have to prove yourself. But I think you've got what it takes." Sarah hesitated, the weight of her skepticism battling the faint glimmer of possibility. Finally, she tucked the card into her pocket. "I'll think about it." Daniel nodded, standing to leave. "Take your time. But don't take too long. Opportunities don't wait forever." The turning point. As Sarah watched him leave, 1,000 doubts swirled in her mind. Was this a genuine lifeline or just another empty promise? She had no way of knowing. But as she sat alone in the cafe, the rain still pouring outside, one thing became clear. Staying where she was, emotionally, financially, and physically, was no longer an option. That night, as she lay curled up in the back seat of her car, Daniel's words echoed in her mind. Rock bottom is where the strongest foundations are built. For the first time in weeks, Sarah allowed herself to imagine the possibility of a future that didn't feel so bleak. And with that, she made a decision. She would go to Daniel's office the next day and see if his offer was more than just words. Little did she know, this decision would set her on a path that would change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The next morning, Sarah woke to the sound of cars rushing past and the cold stiffness of her makeshift bed in the back seat of her car. The previous night's storm had left the air damp, and her windows were fogged over. She sat up, her body aching, and rubbed her temples as she thought about the business card tucked in her coat pocket. Daniel Layton. His name lingered in her mind. His words about rebuilding from rock bottom had stuck with her, a faint but persistent whisper that wouldn't let her sink back into despair. Sarah stared out the foggy window, debating whether to follow through. What if this is just another disappointment? She thought. But then another voice broke through her doubt. Her own voice, raw and desperate from the night before. Staying here isn't an option. Determined to try, Sarah pulled on her cleanest clothes, brushed her hair with her fingers, and made her way to the address on the card. It led her to a modest office building in the downtown district. It wasn't glamorous, but it looked respectable. Clean windows, a neat sign reading Layton Enterprises, and a small planter of flowers at the entrance. The job that wasn't a job. Inside, the office was bustling but unpolished. A young receptionist greeted Sarah with a warm smile. "Hi, how can I help you?" "I'm here to see Mr. Layton," Sarah said, clutching the card like a lifeline. "Do you have an appointment?" "Not exactly. He gave me his card and told me to stop by." The receptionist raised an eyebrow, but nodded. "Wait here. I'll let him know." As Sarah waited, she felt painfully aware of her wrinkled blouse and scuffed shoes. She tugged at her sleeves, trying to smooth out the creases. It wasn't long before Daniel appeared, his sharp suit contrasting with the chaos of the office. "You came," he said with a small smile. Sarah nodded, unsure of what to say. "Come on back," Daniel said, gesturing for her to follow him. He led her to a small, glass-walled conference room. A whiteboard filled with scribbles and post-it notes covered one wall, and the table was cluttered with laptops and coffee cups. "Let's get straight to it," Daniel began, sitting across from her. "I won't sugarcoat things. This isn't going to be easy. We're a startup, which means long hours, tight deadlines, and not much pay. But it's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to prove yourself. Are you ready for that?" Sarah hesitated. I think so." Daniel's expression softened. "Sarah, I don't need think so. I need yes. If you're in, you're in. No half measures." Sarah took a deep breath. "Yes, I'm in." "Good," Daniel said, leaning back in his chair. "Your first assignment starts now." He handed her a thick folder labeled Client Outreach Strategy. "I want you to read this, analyze the issues, and come up with 3 actionable solutions. You have until tomorrow morning." Sarah's eyes widened. "Tomorrow? But I don't." "You'll figure it out," Daniel interrupted. "The real world doesn't wait for perfect conditions. You've got this, Sarah. Prove it to yourself." A rocky start. Sarah spent the rest of the day in a nearby library, poring over the folder. The jargon and charts were overwhelming at first, and doubt crept in with every passing hour. She had no formal experience in marketing, just a few years of administrative work and a knack for creative problem-solving. By nightfall, she had scribbled pages of notes but still felt lost. Her stomach growled, reminding her she hadn't eaten since breakfast. She scraped together the last of her cash for a vending machine sandwich and continued working. As the library closed, Sarah returned to her car, parked under a street lamp. She spread her notes across the dashboard and kept working, fueled by determination and desperation. "What am I doing?" she thought at one point. "I'm way out of my depth." But then she remembered Daniel's words, "You'll figure it out. Prove it to yourself." With a deep breath, Sarah refocused, breaking down the problem into smaller, manageable pieces. By dawn, she had crafted 3 solutions she believed in. 3 ideas that were bold, creative, and completely her own. The presentation. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the office, sleep-deprived but resolute. Daniel was waiting for her in the same conference room, along with 2 other team members, a sharp-eyed woman named Karen and a younger man named Marcus. "Let's hear it," Daniel said, motioning for her to begin. Sarah's heart pounded as she stood before them, clutching her notes. She outlined her ideas, stumbling over her words at first, but gaining confidence as she went. When she finished, the room was silent. Karen exchanged a glance with Marcus, then looked at Daniel. "Well?" Daniel asked. "They're unconventional," Karen said slowly, "but they're fresh. I think the second idea has real potential." "I agree," Marcus added. "It's risky, but it could pay off." Daniel turned to Sarah. "Not bad for your first day. You're rough around the edges, but there's something here. Keep refining your approach, and you'll be an asset to this team." Sarah felt a surge of pride and relief. For the first time in weeks, she felt capable, seen, and valued. Building a foundation. Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into the work. She stayed late, asked questions, and soaked up every bit of knowledge she could. The challenges were relentless, but so was her determination. Karen, initially skeptical of Sarah's abilities, began to warm up to her. She became an informal mentor, teaching Sarah the ins and outs of client relations and strategic planning. Marcus, with his easygoing demeanor, became a friend, offering encouragement during tough days. Daniel, however, remained a tough but fair presence. He pushed Sarah to her limits, demanding excellence and refusing to accept excuses. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Sarah found herself alone with Daniel in the office. "Why are you doing this?" she asked him. "Why did you take a chance on me?" Daniel leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Because I see a bit of myself in you," he said. "I know what it's like to feel like the world's against you, to think you've hit bottom. But I also know that's when people discover what they're really made of. You've got potential, Sarah, more than you realize, and I want to see what you'll do with it." The first big win. Sarah's moment of triumph came 3 months into her internship. The company landed a major client, but their initial campaign proposal fell flat. Tensions were high, and the team was scrambling for solutions. That night, Sarah stayed late, brainstorming ideas. She presented her revised concept to the team the next morning, a bold, innovative campaign that took the client's brand in a new direction. The client loved it. The campaign was a success, bringing in significant revenue and boosting the company's reputation. Daniel called Sarah into his office after the results came in. "You've done good work," he said, handing her a letter. "Consider this your official promotion. You're no longer an intern. You're a full-fledged member of the team." Sarah stared at the letter, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You earned it," Daniel replied. "This is just the beginning." Reflection. As Sarah walked home that evening, the city lights glowing around her, she felt a sense of accomplishment she hadn't experienced in years. She still had a long way to go, but for the first time, she believed she could rebuild her life, one step at a time. The road ahead would be filled with challenges, but Sarah had discovered something invaluable: resilience. And with it, she knew she could face whatever came next. The sound of keyboards clicking filled the office as Sarah sat at her desk, poring over spreadsheets and client feedback. It had been 6 months since she accepted Daniel's offer, and her life felt unrecognizable compared to the night she had huddled in her car, cold and hopeless. But success hadn't come easy. The internship had tested every ounce of her willpower and resilience. The team's demands were relentless, and Sarah had to fight her own insecurities at every step. Yet, as the months passed, her determination carved out a place for her in the company. Today, she faced her biggest challenge yet: a presentation for a new client. This wasn't just any client. It was the first major account she had spearheaded from start to finish. The stakes were high, and the pressure mounted as the meeting approached. The night before the presentation, Sarah stayed at the office long after everyone else had left. She had rehearsed her pitch a dozen times, but doubts still gnawed at her. "What if they don't like it? What if I mess up?" she muttered under her breath, pacing the room. As she ran through her slides again, she heard a knock at the door. Daniel stood there, his sharp suit slightly rumpled, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You're still here?" he asked, stepping inside. "Couldn't sleep," Sarah admitted, sitting down with a sigh. "This presentation, it feels like everything's riding on it." Daniel set one of the coffees in front of her and took a seat across the table. "It's normal to feel that way. But let me tell you something. Perfection is a myth. Clients don't expect you to be perfect. They want to see passion, creativity, and confidence. You've got all 3. Sarah smiled weakly. "Easier said than done." "True," Daniel said with a grin. "But think about this. 6 months ago, you were sleeping in your car. Now you're about to pitch a major campaign to one of our biggest prospects. That's progress, Sarah. Real progress. Don't lose sight of how far you've come." His words settled over her like a warm blanket, calming the storm of self-doubt. The presentation. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the client's office armed with her carefully crafted pitch. The boardroom was sleek and intimidating, filled with executives in tailored suits. Daniel gave her a reassuring nod as she set up her materials. "Good morning," Sarah began, her voice steady but tinged with nervous energy. "Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present today. Our campaign is designed to not only elevate your brand, but to create a lasting connection with your audience." As she spoke, she felt the tension in the room ease. Her confidence grew with each slide, and by the time she reached the conclusion, she could see the executives exchanging approving glances. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. One of the executives stood up, smiling. "This is exactly the fresh perspective we were looking for. Consider us on board." Sarah could barely contain her excitement as she shook hands with the clients. Once they left, Daniel turned to her, a rare grin lighting up his face. "You nailed it," he said. "I knew you would." A new challenge. With her first major success under her belt, Sarah's career at Leighton Enterprises began to soar. She was no longer just the new hire struggling to find her footing. She was a rising star. But with success came new challenges. The company was expanding rapidly, and Daniel entrusted Sarah with managing a new team. It was a role she had never anticipated, and the weight of responsibility felt daunting. Her team was a mix of seasoned professionals and fresh recruits, each with their own quirks and strengths. Karen, her once skeptical mentor, now worked under her, and while their relationship remained professional, the shift in dynamics was palpable. "Leadership isn't about doing everything yourself," Daniel told her during one of their one-on-one meetings. "It's about empowering others to do their best. Trust your team, and they'll trust you." Lessons in leadership. Sarah's first test as a leader came sooner than expected. A high-profile client had a last-minute crisis, and the team needed to pull off a complete campaign overhaul in just 48 hours. Tensions ran high as the deadline loomed. Karen clashed with one of the younger team members over creative direction, and Sarah found herself mediating the dispute. "Enough," Sarah said firmly during a heated meeting. "We don't have time for this. Karen, your experience is invaluable, but Marcus's idea has merit. Let's combine your insights and create something even stronger." The team fell silent, then nodded in agreement. Sarah's decision not only resolved the conflict, but also brought out the best in both team members. By the end of the 48 hours, the team had delivered a campaign that exceeded expectations. The client was thrilled, and Sarah's ability to lead under pressure earned her newfound respect from her colleagues. A personal setback. Just as Sarah was beginning to feel like she had found her footing, life threw her another curveball. One afternoon, she received a call from her mother, her voice shaky and strained. "It's about your dad," her mother said. "He's had a stroke." The words hit Sarah like a freight train. She hadn't spoken to her father in years, not since he had disapproved of her decision to pursue a career instead of settling down like her siblings. Now, as she sat by his hospital bed, the distance between them felt immeasurable. Her father's once strong frame was frail, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm proud of you," he said weakly, his eyes glistening. "I don't say it enough, but I am." Sarah blinked back tears, realizing how much she had longed for his approval. In that moment, she resolved to rebuild their relationship, no matter how difficult it might be. Paying it forward. As Sarah balanced her personal and professional life, she began to reflect on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the night Daniel had given her his card, the nights spent working in her car, and the people who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. Inspired by her own story, Sarah proposed a new initiative at Leighton Enterprises, a mentorship program for women facing hardship. "We have the power to change lives," she told the team during a meeting. "Let's use it." The program launched with overwhelming support, providing training, resources, and mentorship to women in need. Sarah personally mentored several participants, sharing her story and guiding them toward their own fresh starts. Reflection and growth. One evening, as Sarah walked through the city, she passed the cafe where she had first met Daniel. The memory of that night flooded back. How lost she had felt, how a stranger's kindness had sparked a new beginning. She stepped inside, ordered a coffee, and took a seat by the window. Pulling out a notebook, she began to write a letter. "To anyone who feels like they've hit rock bottom, know this: you are stronger than you think. The road ahead may be hard, but every step you take is a step towards something greater. Believe in yourself, even when it feels impossible. And when someone offers you a hand, take it. You never know where it might lead. Sarah folded the letter and left it on the table, hoping it would find its way to someone who needed it. Conclusion. Sarah's journey was far from over, but she had learned to embrace the challenges and triumphs that came her way. She was no longer the woman who had felt defeated by life's circumstances. She was a leader, a mentor, and a testament to the power of resilience and kindness. Her story wasn't just about rising above the odds. It was about lifting others as she climbed. The sun dipped below the horizon as Sarah sat at her desk, her office illuminated by the soft glow of her computer screen. The mentorship program she had proposed was thriving, and her career had reached heights she never imagined. But as she stared at the pile of contracts and deadlines in front of her, she felt a familiar pang of doubt. Even after all her successes, the shadows of her past crept in during quiet moments like these. Memories of the nights spent in her car, the echo of James's betrayal, and the constant fight to prove herself still lingered. The sound of a soft knock broke her thoughts. It was Daniel, leaning casually against the doorframe with a folder in hand. "Late night?" he asked, stepping into the room. "Just finishing up the budget proposals," Sarah replied, offering a tired smile. "Well, I got something that might pull you away from that," Daniel said, setting the folder on her desk. Sarah opened it and scanned the first page. Her eyes widened. It was a proposal for a high-profile client, a global corporation looking to rebrand its image. Landing this client would be a game-changer for the company. "They specifically asked for you," Daniel said. "They've seen your work, and they want you to lead the project." Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fear. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, but the stakes were enormous. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Good," Daniel said with a smile. "I knew you would." The project of a lifetime. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning, strategy meetings, and late nights. The client's demands were ambitious. They wanted a complete overhaul of their brand, from their logo to their public image. Sarah assembled a team of the company's best creatives, including Karen and Marcus. Together, they brainstormed ideas, argued over details, and worked tirelessly to create a campaign that would exceed expectations. But as the deadline approached, tensions began to rise. The pressure to deliver was immense, and the team's morale started to fray. During one particularly heated meeting, Karen slammed her notebook on the table. "This isn't working. We're running in circles, and we're running out of time." "Enough," Sarah said firmly, standing at the head of the table. "We're all feeling the pressure, but we're not going to get anywhere if we keep tearing each other down. Let's take a step back and regroup. We've overcome bigger challenges before, and we'll overcome this too." Her calm but authoritative tone had the desired effect. The team took a collective breath, and the meeting continued with renewed focus. A personal crisis. Just as Sarah was beginning to feel confident about the project, she received a call that shook her world. It was from her mother, and the news was devastating. Her father's condition had worsened. Sarah dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. As she sat by her father's bedside, watching the rise and fall of his shallow breaths, she felt the weight of guilt pressing down on her. She had been so consumed by her career that she hadn't visited him as often as she should have. Her father opened his eyes and gave her a weak smile. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Don't blame yourself. You're doing amazing things. I'm proud of you." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she held his hand. "I just want to make you proud, Dad." "You already have," he said, his grip tightening briefly before he drifted back to sleep. The next morning, Sarah returned to the office, her heart heavy, but her resolve stronger than ever. She channeled her emotions into the project, determined to honor her father's pride in her by giving it everything she had. The climax. The day of the presentation arrived, and Sarah stood in front of the client's board of directors, her team seated behind her. She had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, and she could feel the weight of everyone's expectations. "Good morning," she began, her voice steady despite the nervous energy coursing through her. "Today, we're not just presenting a campaign. We're presenting a vision that will redefine your brand and create a lasting connection with your audience." As she unveiled the campaign, she could see the directors leaning forward in their seats, their interest piqued. Sarah's team had outdone themselves. The visuals were stunning, the messaging was powerful, and the strategy was innovative. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment before erupting into applause. One of the directors stood up, smiling. "This is exactly what we've been looking for. You've exceeded our expectations." Sarah felt a surge of relief and pride. Her team had done it. They had pulled off the biggest project of her career, and the client was thrilled. The fallout. The success of the campaign brought newfound recognition to both Sarah and Leighton Enterprises. The company's reputation soared, and Sarah was offered a promotion to Vice President of Marketing. But the victory was bittersweet. Shortly after the campaign launch, her father passed away peacefully in his sleep. His death left a hole in Sarah's heart, but it also deepened her commitment to living a life he would be proud of. At the funeral, Sarah gave a heartfelt eulogy, sharing stories of her father's strength and resilience. "He taught me to never give up, no matter how hard life gets," she said. "And I carry that lesson with me every day." A turning point. In the months that followed, Sarah threw herself into her work, but she also began to focus on finding balance in her life. She took time to mentor the participants in the company's program for women in need, sharing her story and helping them navigate their own challenges. One of the participants, a young woman named Mia, reminded Sarah of herself. Mia had been through her own hardships, but was eager to learn and grow. Under Sarah's guidance, Mia began to thrive, eventually landing a full-time position at the company. Seeing Mia's transformation reignited Sarah's passion for helping others. She realized that her journey wasn't just about her own success, it was about lifting others as she climbed. Reflection and legacy. One evening, as Sarah sat in her office, she received a package from Daniel. Inside was a plaque with the words, "To Sarah, a true leader, mentor, and inspiration. Thank you for everything you've done." Tears filled her eyes as she read the inscription. She thought back to the night Daniel had first given her his card. How that single act of kindness had set her on a path she could never have imagined. As she placed the plaque on her desk, she made a silent promise to herself to continue paying it forward, to create opportunities for others, and to never forget the power of resilience and kindness. Conclusion. Sarah's journey had come full circle. She had risen from the depths of despair to the heights of success, but her story was far from over. She knew that life would always have its challenges, but she also knew she had the strength to overcome them. And as she looked out at the city skyline, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the struggles that had shaped her, the people who had believed in her, and the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others. The early morning sun streamed through the windows of Sarah's office as she prepared for a special event, a gathering of women from the mentorship program she had spearheaded. These were women from all walks of life, single mothers, survivors of abuse, and those who had faced financial ruin, just as Sarah once had. She glanced at the agenda she had meticulously planned. Today wasn't just about celebrating their achievements. It was about inspiring them to see their potential. It was a culmination of her journey, a way to give back and create ripples of change in others' lives, a gathering of resilience. The conference room buzzed with anticipation as the women trickled in. Sarah stood at the podium, her heart swelling with pride as she watched them take their seats. She recognized many faces. Mia, now a thriving team member at Leighton Enterprises, Clara, who had started her own catering business, and Jasmine, a young woman who had recently earned her college degree. When the room fell silent, Sarah began to speak. "Welcome, everyone. Today, we're not just here to reflect on how far we've come, but to dream about how much further we can go. Your stories are a testament to resilience, courage, and the power of believing in yourself, even when the odds are stacked against you." As Sarah spoke, she felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She shared her own journey, starting with the night she met Daniel in the cafe, the struggles she faced, and the lessons she had learned along the way. "When I hit rock bottom, I thought it was the end," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But someone believed in me, and that belief lit a fire inside me. That's what I see in all of you, a spark, a determination to rise above your circumstances." The room erupted in applause, and Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The birth of a movement. As the event progressed, Sarah introduced the next phase of the mentorship program, the Elevate Initiative. This was more than just a training program. It was a movement designed to provide women with the tools, resources, and support to transform their lives. The initiative included scholarships for education, seed funding for small businesses, and access to mental health resources. It was ambitious, but Sarah was determined to make it a reality. "We're not just building careers," she said. "We're building futures, communities, and legacies." The announcement was met with overwhelming enthusiasm. Women approached Sarah with tears in their eyes, thanking her for creating something so meaningful. A challenge from the past. In the midst of this success, Sarah received a call that brought her past crashing into the present. It was James, her ex-fiancé. She hadn't heard from him in years, and the sound of his voice sent a chill down her spine. "Sarah," he began, his tone hesitant, "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need your help." "What do you want, James?" Sarah asked, her voice cold but composed. "I'm in trouble," he admitted. "I made some bad decisions, and I'm about to lose everything. I don't know where else to turn." Sarah felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, resentment, and disbelief. This was the man who had abandoned her when she needed him most, and now he had the audacity to ask for her help. But as she thought about the women she had mentored, the lessons she had learned, and the power of compassion, she realized something. Holding on to anger wouldn't serve her. "I'll meet you for coffee," she said finally, "but I'm not making any promises." An unexpected encounter. When Sarah met James at a cafe, she barely recognized him. The confident, polished man she once loved was gone, replaced by someone gaunt and disheveled. "I messed up, Sarah," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I let greed and ego drive me, and I lost everything. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm desperate." Sarah listened silently, her emotions a mix of pity and resolve. "I can't fix your mistakes for you," she said, "but I can offer you advice. If you're serious about turning your life around, you need to start by owning your actions and rebuilding trust with the people you've hurt." James nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Sarah. I didn't expect kindness from you, but it means a lot." As she walked away, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, but it allowed her to move forward without the burden of bitterness. A new chapter for Leighton Enterprises. Back at Leighton Enterprises, Sarah was overseeing a major transition. Daniel had announced his plans to retire, and he had chosen Sarah as his successor. The news sent waves through the company, with many celebrating her well-deserved promotion. In her new role as CEO, Sarah was determined to make Leighton Enterprises a beacon of innovation and compassion. She implemented policies that prioritized employee well-being, diversity, and community impact. Her leadership style was marked by empathy and vision, earning her the respect and admiration of her colleagues. Recognition and reflection. One evening, Sarah received an invitation to an award ceremony. She had been nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year, a prestigious honor recognizing her work in both business and philanthropy. As she stood on stage, accepting the award, she felt a surge of gratitude. "This isn't just my award," she said in her acceptance speech. "It belongs to every person who believed in me, every team member who worked tirelessly, and every woman in the Elevate Initiative who dared to dream of a better future." The audience rose to their feet in applause, and Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. A legacy of hope. Years later, Sarah stood in front of a group of young women, much like the one she had mentored in the early days of the Elevate initiative. The program had grown into a national movement, transforming countless lives. "You are the authors of your own stories," she told them. "No matter where you start, you have the power to create a future filled with purpose and possibility." As she spoke, she thought about the ripple effect her journey had created, from Daniel's simple act of kindness to the countless lives now changed because of the opportunities she had helped create. Conclusion. Sarah's life had come full circle. She had risen from the depths of despair to build a legacy of hope and resilience. Her journey was a testament to the power of second chances, the importance of compassion, and the strength found in overcoming adversity. And as she looked out at the faces of the women she had inspired, she knew her work was far from done. The ripple effect she had started would continue to grow, touching lives in ways she could never have imagined. The crisp morning air carried the sounds of bustling city life as Sarah stood in front of a gleaming new building. Above the entrance, bold letters spelled out, "The Elevate Center for Women." It was the culmination of years of hard work, resilience, and a vision that had grown far beyond what she had ever imagined. Today marked the grand opening of the center, a safe haven for women seeking guidance, education, and support to rebuild their lives. Sarah had poured her heart and soul into this project, drawing from her own experiences to create something that would change countless lives. The grand opening. Inside the center, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Women of all ages mingled with volunteers, donors, and members of the community who had come to celebrate the occasion. Vibrant artwork adorned the walls, each piece created by women whose lives had been transformed through the mentorship program. As Sarah stepped up to the podium to deliver her speech, she felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She took a moment to scan the crowd, spotting familiar faces. Mia, now a senior leader at Latent Enterprises, Clara, whose catering business had become a local success, and Jasmine, recently hired as a counselor at the center. "Welcome," Sarah began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Today is more than just the opening of a building. It's the start of a movement. This center is a testament to the strength, resilience, and potential within every woman who walks through these doors." The crowd erupted in applause, and Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. A new challenge. In the weeks following the opening, the Elevate Center quickly became a hub of activity. Women came seeking support for everything from career guidance to financial literacy, and the demand for services grew faster than anyone had anticipated. One evening, as Sarah reviewed the center's financial reports, she realized they were running out of funds far more quickly than projected. The rapid growth of the program was both a blessing and a challenge, and she knew she needed to act quickly to secure additional resources. She reached out to Daniel, now retired but still a trusted mentor and friend. "I'm proud of everything you've accomplished, Sarah," he said during their meeting. "But scaling something this impactful takes more than passion. It takes partnerships. Have you considered bringing in corporate sponsors?" Sarah nodded. "I've thought about it, but I want to make sure we don't lose sight of our mission." "You won't," Daniel assured her. "Just be selective. Partner with organizations that align with your values." Securing the future. Over the next month, Sarah dedicated herself to securing funding for the Elevate Center. She met with CEOs, philanthropists, and community leaders, sharing the center's vision and its impact on women's lives. One meeting stood out, a discussion with the CEO of a major tech company known for its commitment to social responsibility. The CEO, a charismatic woman named Alina, listened intently as Sarah shared stories of the women the center had helped. "Alina," Sarah said, her voice filled with conviction, "this isn't just a charity. It's an investment in our community's future. When we lift up women, we lift up families, businesses, and entire communities." Alina smiled. "You've convinced me, Sarah. Let's make this happen." The partnership was announced a week later, with the tech company committing to a multi-year sponsorship that would provide financial stability for the Elevate Center. An unexpected reunion. As the center thrived, Sarah received an email that caught her off guard. It was from James, her ex-fiancé. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from," the email began, "but I wanted to thank you. After our conversation, I started turning my life around. I've been sober for a year, and I've started volunteering at a local shelter. Your words gave me the push I needed, and I'll always be grateful." Sarah stared at the screen, a mix of emotions swirling within her. She hadn't expected to hear from James again, let alone to learn that her words had made such an impact. She replied simply, "I'm glad to hear you're doing better. Wishing you all the best." The exchange left her reflecting on the power of forgiveness and the ripple effect of compassion. Mentoring the next generation. One of Sarah's favorite parts of her work at the center was mentoring young women who reminded her of her younger self. One mentee, a spirited college student named Amara, stood out. Amara had grown up in a low-income neighborhood, balancing school and part-time jobs while caring for her younger siblings. Despite her challenges, she was determined to build a better future. During one of their sessions, Amara shared her fears about applying for internships. "I'm scared I'm not good enough," she admitted. "What if they don't see my potential?" Sarah smiled, remembering her own doubts when she first met Daniel. "Amara," she said gently, "you are more capable than you realize. Don't let fear hold you back. Every great opportunity starts with someone taking a chance on you and on yourself." Amara took Sarah's advice to heart, eventually landing a prestigious internship. Watching her confidence grow was one of Sarah's proudest moments. A moment of recognition. A year after the Elevate Center opened, Sarah was invited to speak at a national conference on women's empowerment. Leaders from around the country gathered to share ideas and celebrate progress. Sarah's keynote address was the highlight of the event. She spoke about the power of resilience, the importance of mentorship, and the transformative impact of creating opportunities for those in need. "Every story of success starts with a moment of belief," she said. "Belief in ourselves, belief from others, and belief that change is possible. My story is just one example of what can happen when we choose to lift each other up." The audience gave her a standing ovation, and Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude. Looking back, moving forward. One quiet evening, Sarah found herself back at the cafe where her journey had begun. She sat at the same table where Daniel had first handed her his business card, her mind filled with memories. The rain pattered against the window, just as it had that night. But this time, Sarah felt a sense of peace. She pulled out a notebook and began to write. "To the person who feels like they've hit rock bottom, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a story you'll one day be proud to tell. Take the first step, and never stop believing in what you can achieve." She left the note on the table, hoping it would find someone who needed it as much as she had needed Daniel's kindness that night. Conclusion. Sarah's life had come full circle, but her journey was far from over. The Elevate Center was thriving, her mentorship program was changing lives, and she continued to inspire others with her story. Her journey was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of compassion, and the belief that one act of kindness could spark a ripple effect of change. As Sarah looked toward the future, she felt a deep sense of purpose. She had built more than just a career. She had built a legacy. And she knew that the best was yet to come.